professional. Well, so it's been 2 months now since I guess the mainstream headlines have plastered your name all over the news. How's it been going the last couple of months with restaurants since you've switched from vegan to regeneratively raised meat?
Um, I would have hoped that it was like people would have come and supported because if you do want to eat meat, it seems like there's nowhere. I don't know what Houston's like, but in LA, there's like maybe 10 places you could get a grass-fed burger and some of them are organic, but it's not like everywhere has high quality 100%. I mean, the grass-fed thing is kind of a lie because all we all know that every cow is grass-fed until it goes and gets fattened up.
Right.
Nobody can afford to like I don't know, that's like a lie. But anyways, there's not regenerative 100%, no hormones, no this, no that. And so I was hoping that there would have been just off the chain support for all the people that eat meat would want to be able to go out, have a cocktail, have a meal, and have the kind of ethically raised meat that they want. But it's been kind of like the same as it was when we were vegan. So obviously, some of the vegan customers have fallen off, and then we're getting some new um, meat based customers. But I guess what I'm hoping is that it's kind of like a wave, like the vegans are falling off and then the other people are coming. And then there's a lot of mixed families where the wife is maybe vegan or the husband is vegan and then the other one's on a carnivore diet and they're like, "Oh, we never could come together because he basically only eats meat." And so we're so happy to be able to come together. So it's going, I guess, the same. It wasn't any big pump in business and it wasn't any dump in business either, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does. So your story is interesting. You were a vegetarian for a long time, and I guess what was the background of that? What made you be a
I
vegetarian or
was born
vegan?
a vegetarian. I'm
Oh,
still a vegetarian.
oh, you're
I was
still okay. So you
I was born a vegetarian.
okay?
What?
My mom didn't eat meat. My kids are
Oh, they're
I was born a vegetarian, and no, my kids walked into the room, so I had stopped talking in case that you were gonna have to edit it.
no, you're
Is what.
good. You're good.
So I was born. My mother was 19 when she read some book about animal agriculture, and this is the thing that happens, and to people as they get in their head, like, "Oh, this is so unethical." Give me 1 second. I'm
Okay.
really sorry.
No, no,
I
no.
thought
You're
I
good.
all my kids outside, but you're gonna give me 1 second. Sorry.
You're good. We hang up the phone because she's a vegetarian.
I didn't know she still was.
Neither did I. Hey, hey, the things you learn.
You just gotta ask.
Yeah, that's what that's why we do this. Is we ask questions.
Sorry, I have 5 children, and they don't always understand recording a podcast.
Nope, I
Um,
understand.
so I was born to a mother who read a book about, the atrocities of the meat system and how we've become so um, disconnected from nature and the way that we produce food. And so, because of that, my mom became a vegetarian, and because my dad was my mom's husband, then he became a pescatarian. I guess I remember he mostly ate fish growing up, and then my mom, was young, 19 or 20 when she had me, and then she was vegan. And then I remember, I don't know, maybe when I was 4 or 5, she was making cookies and she left the margarine in the oven. And because it had stayed in there a long time, it turned into a piece of plastic, like literally a piece of plastic, because she forgot about it. And she was like, "Ooh, we're never eating margarine again." And so then we were vegan, but we ate butter. And so my mom cooked in butter, but we didn't eat any other meat or anything like that because my mom was like, "Oh, that margarine is bad." So I was just raised that way. Um, and I'm married to a Oaxacan indigenous man he's Zapotec from the very, very south of Oaxaca in like, and he didn't even have a road to his village until 1991. So the vegan idea to him was like the stupidest privilege that had ever existed. Um, but he was just got a job doing dishes in a restaurant and worked his way up and all the way up to marrying the owner. of the restaurant. And so, um, and,
Oh.
and so he, jokes like, this was what I was doing. This is uh, the thing. And, I just went along with it. But my husband has never been vegan, never was vegan. He was raised eating, anything they could find, mostly dried fish, dried pork, and turtle eggs, um and tortillas, corn that they grew. And that's like the way that he was raised. So my house was always kind of divided in that way. But when I started to realize about everything, with all the lies kind of about making the whole stories about methane and cows, and I had listened to a Graham Sate TED Talk, and I realized that food waste was the #1 cause of methane. And I'm literally here with this vegan restaurant causing so much vegetables going into the landfill. And so the dutiful, liberal environmentalist that I was like, oh, I need to get a farm and compost all of my vegetable scraps so that I'm not causing methane. And so I grew up on a farm in upstate New York. And so I was like, I can do this. And so I purchased a farm so that I could not throw all of my uh, food scraps into the landfill. And I was under this delusion that I could have a farm where nothing ever dies. Um, and my husband graciously let me go along with this whole delusion and let me unravel it for myself rather than just telling me how it was going to go, which was a good move on his part, because if it had gone some other way and it was like a fight. So one day, I got these little sheep because we had vineyards and hop yards. We have a brewery in LA. The restaurant has a brewery. And so we were growing hops. We were the first certified organic hop yard. And I got these tiny little baby doll sheep that are short and they can't get on their hind legs, and they prune the hops and they can graze like in your vineyards. And they're adorable and they were stupid expensive. And we're grazing them through the orchards, and we made these little pens that move on wheels every couple hours, and we called them the laminators, and they're just amazing. And the neighbor has all this grass, and she's like, can you graze them through my orange orchard? I'm like, oh yes, my little regenerative sheep. And my naivety, and I bring them to her house, and we put them the little cart and then and the very first night. And then we have, so we have this thing that's all enclosed that moves, and then we have electric fence that we can make a bigger space for them in the daytime, and then put them all closed up at nighttime. Or you can just roll the cart if it's like through the rows of an orchard where it's tight. Anyway, so her orchard, the trees were pretty far apart, so we put an electric fence, and then we closed them up at night the very first night. And I drove my golf cart back to my house. The next morning I see my uncle's face drive past, and I can tell like something is wrong. And he says to my husband, you get in the cart. And then he said, you stay here, to me. So of course I wanted to follow and see what had happened, because he told me to stay. And I get there, and the neighbor's 2 German shepherds, different neighbor, not the neighbor we were grazing, their orchard, had dug underneath the fence and killed all the sheep.
Oh,
And didn't eat one single bite, not one single bite. And then there was sheep that were like necks ripped out and still
Oh my
alive. And
gosh.
my husband runs and gets a gun, and he shoots the ones that are still in pain. He's like, that one's too old, put it to the compost pile, bring me all of these to the barn. And he just gets the forklift or the tractor, and he hangs them up, and he's skinning them, and he's cutting them. And I'm just like crying about my cute, and I mean, these things look like little stuffed animals. They're like the stupidest, cutest things you've ever seen. You look up a baby doll sheep, like it's just ridiculous. Looks like a stuffed animal. And I'm so upset. And my husband just calls into the restaurant, says he can't come in. And then he just starts calling people. Does anybody want any lamb? Does anybody want any lamb? And he's like, call people. Like, we don't have freezer space. I don't have bags. Like, just call people to come get meat. And he's yelling at me. And then so I call some people, and all the widows that I called were like, oh no, trauma. I don't want any meat with trauma in it. And I remember thinking, oh, they think there's no trauma in like transporting animals like across state lines and all to the only four major companies that are processing 90% of the meat, 80% of the meat that we're eating. But okay, so, but the Latino community just showed up in force and we just handed out 5-gallon buckets of lamb all day. Just people is
Oh my
coming and
gosh.
we're dumping it in salt water and lime. And my husband's like, okay, dunk it, do this, da, da. And everybody's just the whole farm, all the farm workers, and people are excited. I'm like devastated, and people are excited and like, thank you so much. Thank you for thinking of us. And just family after family is coming up. And I'm thinking that my idea was to dig a hole and bury them and put a cross on top of it. And um, and it fed, I don't know how many families, but a lot of families. And in that moment, in that day, I realized two things. We're not going to stop people from eating meat. So it's better if people eat better meat. And the other thing I realized is that nature is far more brutal than humanity is. And so this idea that we could somehow be like morally superior and we're going to grant the farm animals life, and nobody's ever going to kill a farm animal again, is like, it's just like a not real thing to even think. And then if you play it out all the way to the end, it's actually extinction for all the farm animals, because nobody's going to keep farm animals around just to feed them. Like, and I mean, maybe there'll be like one cow in a zoo somewhere, but like it also eliminates the life of billions and billions of animals that, I mean, my cows love their life. I don't know about, I mean, they snuggle me and they get moved every day on the field. And I don't think that if they had a chance to not have this life because one day they're going to get eaten, or 5 minutes a day they get milked, I don't think that that's the choice that they would make. And that is, if you play out the vegan thing all the way to the end, that's where it plays out to, is like extinction of all farm animals. And so I had that realization. And, one other realization about the ducks, I wouldn't let my husband, the first animals we killed on the farm ever were ducks harvested. And that was after I raised up these khaki Campbell female ducks, but all the ducks that were born on the farm, the hatched ones, we just let the boys live because I was a vegan. And the craziness of that was that there was like a 50-50 Drake to female ratio. And I got these new khaki Campbells and I raised them up and they were so cute. And I put them out into the orchard, and I went to work, and I came back after loving these little ducks for weeks until they got big, and cleaning up the poop and the water. And they were all raped to death, fucked to death on the orchard floor, because there was the ratio of male to female. And there would never be that in nature. The males would get chased away, they'd get eaten. There would never be an equal ratio of male to female ducks, because you just don't need that many males.
Yeah.
And so but in the not nature that I had, I was like thinking I'm doing the kind thing. And what ended up happening is all those females got killed. 19 female ducks all died in one day after I raised them up. And so I called my dad, and he's like, yeah, that'll bring a vegan to her knees. You better tell somebody to harvest those boys. And so that was the first realization. And then the second one was the lambs. And so, all of these realizations came over time. But I mean, I was in my early 40s. I was raised not eating meat, even though we grew up on a farm. We grew all of our own vegetables, and we had cows that we basically housed for a neighbor. And I guess I assume they were turned into meat at some point, but we just had young cows that was part of the economics of our farm that we raised up. But we were all vegetarians, oddly enough. And so that is how I got to be a vegetarian. And that is how I got to realize that there's no life without death, and that farming without death doesn't exist, and that it would be silly to think that we could live outside of that system.
Thanks for sharing that. That's a very detailed, and I don't think a lot of people think like that, especially how you played out all these scenarios. I I didn't know a duck could get fucked to death. Is that
Oh,
is that
ducks
literally
and
what
chickens
happened?
can literally what happened.
Oh my
Duck,
gosh.
it happens a lot actually. I mean, even we had a goose and it was just one, but he was bigger than everybody else, and he used to fuck chickens to death. We had to move him. We actually gave him to a movie guy that uses birds in movies because he was old and
You fucking
killing everybody. But yeah, no, that's a whole thing. Like the ratio of male to female in nature, lions, everybody, they chase the males away. You know, chimpanzees, only one male or two males are allowed to mate. You know, there's all these things that exist in nature, but if you just try to have a bunch of males and all the food that everybody needs in a Great Pyrenees protecting them from predators, well, then you create other kinds of problems.
So what's kept you a vegetarian?
I don't really relate to meat as food. And my kids are not vegetarians, or I guess one of them is a vegetarian, two of them are not a vegetarian, and one says he's a vegetarian except for bacon because it's so delicious. He's 4. I assume he won't be a vegetarian he eats a 4-year-old's diet, which is pretty basic. But so I just didn't relate to it as food. I think bone broth, I was just telling someone, I think bone broth is going to be my gateway drug. I've been making bone broth for people, and I'm a chef. And so like, I was like, other people are making bone broth and it was like, so not good. I was like, taste a little bit. And I was like, oh, and then I make bone broth and everybody's like, oh my God, this is like so amazing. It's like nourishing. It's so good. And I'm like, obviously, because I put seasoning in it. I don't know.
That's so funny.
And so now my husband is like, well, you think my bone broth is blah, so you have to season it. So he'll make it. And then I go down and we have like tons of herbs here growing on the farm, like lemongrass and ginger and turmeric. And I'll put all that stuff in and make it delicious. But I haven't. My brother's the same as me, and he's 44, and he just started eating meat like 2 years ago, and he's like a little ahead of me, in the journey. But I've been thinking about it a lot because I'm 46. I'm still breastfeeding. I have a tiny little baby. I just had 4 babies back to back to back. In 4 babies in 8 years, and I've been breastfeeding for 8, 9 years,
Wow.
however long it's been. My oldest is 9, so I've been breastfeeding for 9 years straight because I just had them back to back. And so I feel like I'm aging kind of more rapidly, and I feel like my hair is kind of dry. And so I've been thinking about it. I just haven't made the leap.
Are you Hispanic?
I'm not, but my husband is. I'm
Okay.
like a white mutt from America.
Okay.
Irish, English, Italian, Austrian, German.
A little bit of
A
everything.
little bit of everything, huh?
Yeah, just like a New York white mutt kind of, a little bit of everywhere.
What was that internal discussion like in yourself when you were deciding to make the switch in your vegan restaurants? Like, did you almost talk yourself out of it a couple times, or was it pretty easy?
I did talk myself out of it,
Okay.
and we should have done it sooner. The truth is, like, we're in such a financial position now that like we may still not make it because of where we're at financially, and I should have done it sooner. My husband was pressuring to do it sooner, and before we lost the other 2 restaurants, the Agora Hills and the Culver City. But well, it was this thing is like, okay, we're going along and I have a super successful restaurant. We're doing $7 million a year. And so right before the pandemic, I was in contract for $25 million for my restaurants. And then like I was going to stay on temporarily for some months, for some years, and do food development for a good paycheck for 6 years, and we'd expand it, and we'd done everything to get franchisable. And we had one offer, and it was like a lowball offer cash. They didn't need to raise any money, and the stupidness of me, I should have taken it. That was only like 12 million. And then the guy that was the firm that was doing it was like, I can get you so much more, like 25 to 31 million. Like, I have all these people interested, like, do not take that deal. And I'm like, but it's a cash deal and there's no equity involved and blah, 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 blah. And, but it seemed like crazy if my stores are, if each store, I have 4 stores and some of them are doing $7 and $6 million a year, seems silly to take $12 million. But in retrospect, now that I'm in this position, so it was very, in that time, it was, I had the realization like 2018, 2019, but also my restaurants were like at the top of their game and it looked like we were going to sell them. So at that point, I was just like, I'm going to sell and then I'm going to do a regenerative concept and it'll be like Vegan Chef does this new thing after I've sold my vegan restaurants. And then this is 2019. We're doing all the paperwork in the last months of 2019 going into 2020. And then all of a sudden COVID hits, because these deals are not fast. They're slow moving creatures. And so the money gets all choppy and goes away for hospitality because it's like an undetermined amount of time. And I mean, they were right for the money to go away because California shut down indoor dining for 2 years, which is essentially why my business is in the position that it's in now, because we've culturally shifted the way it is in California. It's not like this in, I mean, I assume, I don't know how Houston was, but it's totally acceptable now to just like swipe left or right. I don't know. I've never been on these dating apps, but, and then like, meet up with somebody and like just go to their house and fuck and skip the whole going out to dinner part.
Yeah.
Because COVID said you can't go out to dinner for 2 years. So because of that, we've culturally changed the dating landscape. And then now, even to this day, one parent often is still working from home. And so what I used to call early family dinner, which is where one parent would pick up the kids from school and the other parent would meet at some restaurant on the way home from work. That doesn't happen anymore because the parent that's working from home is already home and the kids have already gotten in their pajamas and nobody's going out. And so we've like literally reshaped the landscape of California and how people interact with restaurants. And so, but I couldn't have known all of that. So my intention was that I should have done it. I mean, now looking back, I should have done it before, but when I was looking forward, it seemed like this is worth $25 million. Let's just sell it and go on to the next thing and open a regenerative restaurant. And then there was a lot through the pandemic of thinking it was going to go back to normal. I don't know if that was everywhere, but in California, it kept being like, well, it's got to get back to like some sense of normalcy. Like people are going to start going out to dinner again. People are going to start lunching again. But I mean, nobody went to work for 2 years in the offices. So nobody went, lunch business is like a whole thing. You go out with your coworkers, but if you're working from home, you just eat a peanut butter sandwich or a quesadilla in the kitchen and go back to work.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, so it's like all these things completely shifted. So the amount of flow in restaurants is just ridiculously low. And so then we thought, okay, we're going to close these 2 stores that are doing, or one store was doing really good, but the landlord's new lease options were terrible. And then, because I'd been there 10 years, and then the other store was just, we opened it during COVID, it just never thrived. And so I said, let's focus on the 2 stores, and then focused on the 2 stores for just about a year and couldn't get it back. So I was like, okay, let's do this. The 2 options are we close or we try to do this regenerative thing. And of course, I wish I had done it sooner and all of that, but you're only informed by the information you have. It's easier to look back and say, I wish I had done it. But yes, when we were closing the store that didn't thrive during COVID, my husband's like, let's just add eggs and cheese, please, honey. Just let's add pizza with real cheese. Like that's going to be a thing. I'm like, it's going to be a thing. It's a thing.
You'll never see it coming.
It's going to be a thing. But we did talk myself out of it. I was also not, I was pregnant. And so, and you know, I was not emotional. Like I just wasn't quite up for being eviscerated at the end of my pregnancy there. Like I just felt a little too like sensitive, like I'm about to have a baby, and I don't know. It just felt like people are just gonna attack me. And I was just like, I'm kind of feel I'm at max capacity right now. I've got 3 young children, I'm pregnant, I got these stores, I've got these farms. I I just don't know if emotionally I can take it. And it was so we didn't do it then, and we waited a year to focus, see if we could get those 2 restaurants. Because it's still, I still thought selling the restaurants and having a clean break and doing a new concept was going to be a better idea.
Yeah.
So yes, I talked myself out of it. That was a very long answer to a
Those are
very easy question.
no, that was a good answer. So you have to be considering opening something up in Texas with your ranches being in Texas. Is that?
Yeah,
And with half the Californians here.
I know. Yeah,
So
right.
your market's still over here.
I know. I not I don't want to. I don't want. I want to be on the ranch. And so we built a restaurant here on the ranch, and it's going to be, we're building a brewery, and we're going to do like a destination thing. I'm putting in a gym and a co-working space. So imagine if you guys were like, I don't know what you do for a living, but you're like, let's go to Bandera for the weekend and eat all organic regenerative food and work out and swim in the pond and kayak and have a tiny house. And instead of spending, I don't know, $40 on 2 burritos, you spend $400 on staying for the weekend. That's kind of the model I'm going for. So we built a restaurant here. It's you can go to my website, Sovereignty Ranch, and see photos of it. And it's
Oh
not
shit.
open all the way right now. It's just open for special events and stuff. And we
Okay.
have a liquor license. And I mean, we have all the licensing to be open every day if we wanted to. We just are not
That's
yet. But
badass.
That's a good idea.
That's a really good idea.
I'm already thinking, I'm like, when I book, because
Yeah.
that,
we don't have the gym yet, but we do have paddle boards, kayaks. We have a huge like pond. We have a sauna. We have 40 beds. You guys could do like a meet guys retreat. This other guy, do you know Brian from Food Lies, the Sapien Center
Yeah.
in Austin?
Yeah, I
They're
do.
gonna do a thing where they're gonna do like a primal Sapien Center thing where we're gonna harvest a goat. They're gonna participate. We're gonna dig a hole, and then we're gonna make barbacoa like in the earth oven, like old style.
Yeah.
Just people are so disconnected from their food.
Yeah.
So that's part of what I want to do here, is that the ripple effect is you come here, you walk through the greenhouses, you see eggplants growing, you go pet a cow, you go eat eggplant parmesan and a burger, and you're like, wow, this is how I want my food to be grown. So how can I support more of this? And then the ripple effect is you go out into your community and support farmers. So I want to be with my children. I've spent so much time away from my children building something that may now not be worth anything at all. I want to spend time. I want to have a business where if my son is having a meltdown, I can run over and check on him. So that's what I want. And I think that we lie to women and tell them they can have it all, and you can't. You're going to either be a good business person or you're going to be a good mother. I'm pretty much an okay both right now. And I want to shift the way that I'm doing business so that I can be a better mother.
that's so, isn't Bandera kind of by the Frio? The Frio
Yeah.
River? Yeah, so you
Yeah.
have that too, which a bunch of people travel that way. That concept of just bringing everybody to you, like the whole, if you build it, they'll come. We have a lot of stuff popping up like that in Texas. They're building, like there's a thing called like the Lost Lagoon, and they built this huge pool with like a lazy river, and they have like a little restaurant, and then all these spots. But people just go to you, and you can spend a lot more money, rather than buying those 2 burritos. They'll, book a whole weekend with you, and you can,
Yeah.
yeah, you
And
can have a
that's
good
what we have,
experience.
40 beds. We have tiny houses, shipping containers. We have like glamping. We have like glamping tents, which this time of year don't really rent out, but we have the next level up from the glamping tents is like shipping containers and then there's like bathrooms they have to walk to, but they have real showers and bathtubs and everything like that. But so the shipping containers have air conditioning and 2 queen beds and, bamboo floors, and they're a nice, uh, place to stay. And then we have 3-bedroom houses and 4-bedroom houses, like manufactured kind of homes. And then we also have tiny houses that have your own bathroom and stuff. But so it's kind of goes glamping tent, shipping container, tiny house. There's 2 cabins, and then there's the manufactured homes. And so 40 beds total. So there's lots of people that come for all different things. And there's a van for like, I don't know what the price is. I think it's like 25 or 45 a person, where they'll come pick you up with the and tubes and take you to the river, and then let you lazy flow down the river, and then pick you up at the other end. And then we just can have a buffet ready for you when you get back. So
Oh
it's
my
like
gosh.
super nice options. And yeah, we have a liquor license, we have a bar on the property, and but then there's a bunch of regenerative agriculture education that we do as well. So people can choose, like if you're having a family reunion, they're like, can you do a class about sourdough bread? And sure, we do a bunch of different education stuff.
That's such an awesome idea. So what's the timing on like I guess the opening of everything?
Well, right now all the hospitality is open, and I'm trying to figure out how to open the restaurant full time. It's just like the labor market out here is a little addicted to meth. No, just kidding. The labor market out here is
No way. Oh my God.
Bandera, I believe it.
so yeah, we're just hard on the labor market. So we're working on it. But uh we're hoping, what I'm thinking is we're going to open for the restaurant. We want to do for like a haunted hayride for October, like 2 weeks.
Mm.
Be open, have pumpkins, have the restaurant open, have different activities for the kids, and then kind of parlay that into doing Christmas trees and having the restaurant open and doing like a little local crafty Christmas shopping opportunities, and just kind of stay open like that. And that would be the start of the being open. But right now, if you come and rent a house, we ask you like, do you want meals included or not? And we cook. And then we have like just had 50 people rent the whole ranch, or had 400 people for the eclipse, and the restaurant was obviously open during that time.
Gosh, that's so badass. So are you
So
full time in Texas now? Or are you bouncing back and forth and between LA right now?
it's the worst. I'm the full time in Texas now, but now I need to go back to LA and see this transition through. But I couldn't afford to have my ranch there and my ranch here, so I don't have a house there now, so that's the problem. But looking to figure out a sublet or something. But yeah, I'm full time here, but I will be going back and forth to LA for a while, for 1 week out of every month, to just oversee this transition, make sure the food is right, make sure the integrity is in place.
Yeah.
And
So,
I,
go ahead.
I guess in culinary school, you always knew how to prepare meat, right?
I didn't go to culinary school.
Oh, it's all self-taught?
All self-taught. My husband's also a chef, like, right, he worked his also through working his way up the uh and so he didn't only work in my restaurant, he worked in Italian restaurants and other restaurants before me. And I've been cooking meat for my husband for years. And so but I came up with all the recipes and came up with all the sauces, but I'm not actually going to be like doing the temperatures, because someone on the line is doing that. So that part is, I don't have to like do that every day. So that is how that worked out. But we are doing pretty simple meat for right now because of that, because some of my guys have been cooking vegetarian food for 13 years. So I didn't want to do like pork chops to off the bat. I was like, okay, so we're gonna have burgers, we're gonna have asada, we're gonna have,
Chicken
so
fingers?
it is very simple. But we're doing like smash taco. We are doing like a bison smash taco, and we're doing a bison burger, a venison patty melt, and antelope curry, which we were making here in Texas a lot, and people just were crazy for it. So we have and people love it in LA. This guy was there the other night and he was like, "This is so unbelievable." And I go, "Is it the best venison curry in all of Los Angeles?" And he was like, "I see what you're doing. It's the only venison curry in all of Los Angeles."
Where are you
Uh,
getting all the bison meat at?
Force of Nature.
Yeah,
So I think it's coming from Laura Seidel Turner's ranch in Montana.
that's cool.
Oh,
We have
And
we had Taylor Collins on last year or the year before, I don't remember, from Rome Ranch or Forces of
yep,
Nature. Have you met with
yeah,
him?
yeah, yeah. I know Taylor and Robbie.
That's cool. Yeah, they're good people.
Very good people. So we're getting all of our, and then we're getting some beef from them as well. And then Stimple Creek, we're getting the rest of the beef from Stimple Creek, which is in California. Really awesome place. We're getting our chicken from Bluff Ranch, which is in California, fully pastured 100% of the time. They're smaller birds, and my cooks were like, "Can we get bigger regenerative organic chickens?" And I was like, "The whole thing is no."
Yeah,
And that because literally for them to be regenerative, they have to be able to walk,
yeah.
which seems like a fair thing for a chicken to be able to walk if we're gonna breed it to eat it. But so yeah, they are a smaller heritage breed that grows fast, but can walk and do all the natural things that chickens do and can be fully pastured. And then we're getting our wild harvested meat from Broken Arrow Ranch in Ingram here in Texas. I don't know if you're familiar with them,
Yep.
but they go out with a USDA agent and harvest in the field antelope and axis and venison. I mean,
That's
I guess axis is venison, but you
yeah.
know, and then uh and then we're getting oh, and we're getting a summer sausage for like our pepperoni because I couldn't find a regenerative pepperoni. So we're doing wild harvested boar
Oh yeah.
summer sausage from Broken Arrow Ranch as our pepperoni option for pizza.
You're like the most interesting woman in the world. Like you just do all this stuff, and I imagine all of it's like self-taught. Even your ranch. Um, did anyone teach you how to ranch, or are you just teaching yourself? Taught
Teach
yourself?
myself,
Yeah.
teach myself. Um, yeah, no, I'm all of it is. Here's the thing: we can all do whatever. We just have to be. Think about 90% of whatever people don't do in life. It's because they talked themselves out of it.
Mm.
And because we think that we should know how it's going to turn out, but we never know how it's going to turn out. If you had told me 12 years ago that I would be married to Elias, who was one of my sous chefs in the restaurant, and that I would live in Texas and that I would have 4 children with him and had adopted another kid from Guatemala and that the restaurants would be serving meat and that I would be centrist leading right rather than crazy liberal, I would have told you that you were out of your mind. Like I'd be like, Elias was, I don't know how 21 when if you had told me this 12 years ago, I'd be like, this is insane. Like, no, I'm not gonna marry this child, undocumented child. Like, I'm not that's I mean that he occurred that way to me like as a very young person. None of it would have I wouldn't have believed a single bit of what my life is. So this idea that you're gonna know how it's gonna go, you're not. I got pregnant on a one night stand and I had had a talk with mushrooms years before, and mushrooms said, never get an abortion ever again. So I was like, oh, we have to get married. And he was 23 and I was 36. And he was like, so I should break up with my girlfriend? I said, yes, break up with
Hell yeah. I like you, Molly.
that's a good
and
punchline
he
right
was like,
there.
but we have to get married. And I was like, yes, we have to get married. And he was like, for sure. And I said, yes, mother, child, father, child, Holy Trinity. God told me I have, mushrooms. God told me through the mushrooms. And literally that kind of radical trust in like is what has my extraordinary life. I have an extraordinary life. And because I trust God and I trust taking the next step and I trust that I have no idea how it's going to go and that being afraid and taking the next step is my superpower. And literally everyone in my life, everybody was like, you can't marry him. I was like, the mushrooms told me I can't ever have another abortion, that I did something wrong. And they were like, yeah, it was a hallucination. It's called a hallucinogen. And I was like, no, it was God, and I'm positive I have to. And I lost the baby in January after. So we got married. I got one night stand early October, pregnant late, realized I was pregnant late October, married on Thanksgiving, January 5th, lose the baby.
Oh man.
Everybody's like, you're free. You're free. You don't have to do it. And I was like, I think I do. Why would God make me go through this whole thing just to be freebie? Like, to test you, you followed him. And I was like, yeah, I don't think that that's how that works. Like, now get divorced. Like, oh no, it's annulled. It's annulled. It's only been this many months. Everybody's encouraging me to annul the marriage. And we are doing this big catering for an Indian family, big vegetarian catering. And it's the 50th wedding anniversary for the patriarch and matriarch of the family. And we go over, they want to talk to me and my husband and say thank you for the food. So we go over and I say, what has you be married for 50 years? And she said, oh, it was an arranged marriage. And we've built every bit of love we have, creating our future, never looking back to how he used to be or how I used to be. But we're always creating from nothing for the future. And someone must have translated that for my husband, because at this point, me and my husband were using Google Translate to communicate. We didn't speak the same language. And that night, he said, well, maybe the baby, just arranged our marriage, and now we have to do the work. Mind you, he was 23, culturally, like, we had nothing in common. And so it wasn't easy. People say, oh, well, like, that's such a nice story. I'm not saying it was easy. It was hard. He drank too much. He didn't feel adequate. I felt frustrated, and like, there was so much that had to be worked through. But people out there alone and single because they're waiting to meet the right person, like, just be the right person. Like, literally be the right person, and whoever you're with will show up also as the right person. Like, that's the reality. And so we did the work and we worked through it. And now we have this extraordinary life, and we love each other very much. And we still argue. He still wants me to be more like a Mexican wife. He'll be like, can you just be like a good Mexican wife and get me a plate? Oh, okay, sorry, I forgot. Yeah, I'll get you a plate. And so, we're still working through it. But the best part of all of that is my oldest son, Osmar, found us through the pandemic. He came here from Guatemala, and this totally dispels that people that are in poverty, like, don't care about what they eat. This is like the stupidest liberal talking point I've ever heard. But so basically he Googled, can food in the United States make you sick? And he found Dr. Mark Hyman. And then through finding Dr. Mark Hyman, he found regenerative agriculture. And through that, he found me. And then he came during early pandemic. He was in high school and there was no school. So he just, like, basically came into a volunteer day and, like, never left. And he was highly malnourished. And then he never left. And I ended up adopting him. But what I believe is that the mistake of the abortion I made, however many years ago that was, 25 years ago, is Osmar found me back and came back to me. And now our family is complete because I did the right thing and followed what God asked me to do. And so that's how we got to this family of 7 that we are.
You just gave me chills, Molly. Woo!
That's awesome.
Radical trust.
Yeah.
The whole world, we don't trust each other, we don't trust ourselves, and we don't trust God. And that is how we've gotten into a world where we need the USDA in every meat interaction. We need the government to say how much everybody should get paid. We need the government to say how much housing should cost, and if you build this, how much you can charge for this. Like, we've become a society of people that have very little faith in ourselves, faith in God, and our ability to interact with other human beings and make decisions and choices for ourselves. And so because of that, the government is in every part of our life, and it's very dangerous. Our food is at the verge of being fully co-opted and fully centralized. And mark my words, they're going to use this bird flu thing to try to get raw milk, and they're going to kill a bunch of chickens. They're going to kill a bunch of cows. They're going to make our food supply more centralized, which is actually the real risk. Bird flu is not the risk. Like, so 3 farm workers got bird flu. Did anybody die? Like, they got bird flu and then they got better. Like, people get sick. That's like part of life. Like, but we have to realize that we are at this tipping point with our food, and we have to say no. This Amish farmer is saying no, and I hope that he wins his case. And but there's a lady by me in California got arrested for selling raw goat milk, even though she was selling it as pet food and had all the labeling. I just saw someone just sent me another farm that got arrested for selling raw cheese, even though it was labeled for pet food. But it's ridiculous that we have to label raw cheese for pet food. It's all just ridiculous. Like, the reality is, if I want to eat milk the way it came out of the cow's gutter, or if I want to eat a piece of meat the way, if my husband just chopped up the goat and dipped it in salt water and that's it, like, I should have every right to eat that meat like that. That's like, that should be my right.
Yeah.
We don't need the government in every interaction, but we've gotten so little trust in each other. And people say, well, humans are evil and humans are bad. Like, but look at governments. Like, show me one government that people are shitty for sure, but governments, show me when they're actually operating in our best interest and not just in some way to bring us more to our knees, have us more contained, consolidated, docile, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
It's funny they take a stance on that, but then the corporate influence allows all these ingredients to go in these processed foods.
Yeah.
And make us have, cancer and sickness and all this stuff. So they let that go, but then the raw milk or whatever, they're like, no, we're gonna really do our job on this one.
And that's my thing is, I want the people, the vegetarians, the vegans, the carnivores, the keto, what is that the new one? It's like animal based, where you eat fruit and maple syrup. That's what my son
Yes. That's
right?
it. Yeah,
that's what my son is on. He's like kefir with maple syrup and then just meat and fruit.
Yeah.
But so, and kimchi, fermented vegetables. So anyways, all of these different groups, we could all be like this. How about no chemicals? How about chemicals that turn boy frogs into girl frogs? We shouldn't have those in our kids' food. I mean, just like as an example, how about Roundup? Let's not have Roundup in the highest levels of any food is Cheerios, and Cheerios is one of the first things we give kids, followed by cream of wheat and oats, which is also the first foods we give kids. Like, it's ridiculous. And people say, oh, well, Roundup doesn't affect the human body. Well, that's true, because the human body, like the skin bag holding my soul, no, it doesn't. But I'm 50% that, and I'm 50% microbiology, and every bit of microbiology in my body has a shikimate pathway, and Roundup kills everything with a shikimate pathway. So yes, but I mean, we're kind of like Weekend at Bernie's. Like, this skin bag can only stay alive with the microbiology keeping it alive. And most of our serotonin comes from our gut. And if we're not having a healthy gut, then we're fucking depressed. And so people say, like, you take it too far, because I'm saying the lack of microbiology in our guts, I'll take it all the way back to like gun violence, suicide, like all these epidemics that are happening, drug addiction. This is all because people are mentally not well, and people are mentally not well because we don't have a healthy microbiology. And it starts all the way at birth. Like, we're at 40% C-sections. Like, okay, so we're C-sectioning babies. So it's their initial, like, what gets into their stomach is from a sterile hospital room instead of from the vagina and the anus of the mother, which is like literally designed. There's certain bacteria that never comes out of your colon, And then right when a baby's about to be born, it moves into your vaginal canal so that your baby can be inoculated with it for its microbiology. This is the design, the human design. And so 40%, and then we stop breastfeeding because it's inconvenient, because women can have everything. You can have it all. Fed is best, not breast is best. And I was sold that lie. I didn't have children until I was 37. Imagine, I almost missed out on having a family. And then so we go from the hospital room is the base microbiology rather than the vagina and the anus. Then we go to corn syrup, essentially, with in fortified corn syrup for so we like grow these super bugs in people's stomachs, and the balance is all out of whack. And then we start eating hyper processed, super processed foods that don't have any natural microbiology. So normal kids in the wild, or my kids, are like out there eating some dirt, eating a peach off of the tree, picks up their toy off the ground, puts it in the mouth, pets the cat, gets cat hair in the mouth, kisses the cat. All of that is creating the microbiology, but we don't, our kids are growing up without pets, in sterile environments, with air fresheners and sanitizers, formula, C-sections, no. And then even if they are getting vegetables, it's like frozen vegetables out of a bag, or vegetables that were HPPT, like high pressure. So all the bacteria is gone. So of course we have mental illness, because the number one producer of serotonin in the body is a healthy gut.
Yeah.
And so people say I'm crazy that I'm taking it all the way back to there, but I'm saying that the real issue in America is our lack of real food,
Yeah.
and our lack of microbiology.
There's definitely a rise of people wanting to get back to nature and the simplicity of food and vegetables and things like that. I saw this cool tweet yesterday. Someone said that the FDA approval, and I think this could be applied to the USDA, like you said, like FDA approval doesn't mean like this is safe for you. It's a transactional deal. It's a business deal. That's what that means. And I think that could be applied to what the USDA is doing with raw milk, raw cheese, food in general.
Yeah, in Texas, so I'm on the process of getting a raw milk permit for the farm here. But in Texas, you can't sell raw yogurt, raw kefir, raw cheese. You can sell raw cheese, but none of those other things. So it's just it's not even allowed, no matter what. And there's no wholesale, so I can't sell raw milk to the restaurant. So if you came here, let's say hypothetically, and you were like, "Can I get a latte?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let me go pasteurize your milk real quick." That's the rule, because I can't sell raw milk. But if you wanted to come as an activity and you wanted to milk a cow, where you milked that cow into is like up to you. And so we do pajaretes. Do you know what pajaretes are?
Uh-uh.
It's a Mexican thing. So normally it has alcohol in it, but we don't do it with alcohol here because I'm just not a fan of like tequila at 9 and 8 and 7 in the morning. But they take, usually it's instant coffee, hot chocolate, and tequila, and then you milk the cow and it gets super frothy like a cappuccino. But so here we just do organic espresso. We have an espresso machine in the milk barn. So organic espresso, and then we have organic fair trade chocolate, and then you milk the cow into it. Or if you don't want any chocolate because you're doing animal based and no sugar and it doesn't have maple syrup in it, then you can just
she likes that.
It is funny. That's a thing. That's funny.
Damn honey. And
so it's just, here's the thing. I could do it with the vegan thing. It's like, oh, if you don't want to do it because the oat milk from Costco is in the other building, you can go watch someone do it and then go get oat milk. Like, it's just, we get so, the thing is we get so rigid. And my thing is, whenever we're that rigid, we're not really being logical or flexible. Like any way that you're being, where it's like so strict that you have to be flexible, because one day you're going to be at an airport. Like, I don't like my kids to eat pizza because it's all filled with Roundup unless I make the pizza. We have a pizza oven here and I give them plenty of pizza. with sourdough regenerative flour, and it's delicious. But does that mean that sometimes they don't eat pizza in the airport or wherever we were on our way home? Or I feel like we can't be so rigid, because there's poison everywhere. But if we're just going to be crazy about it, like I'm only going to eat these 5 things, then that's also not a life worth living. So I try to be flexible, a flexitarian.
I think you're a dangerous person in a good way, because you have your feet planted in both worlds, like the vegan slash vegetarian community, and then now you're like fully immersed yourself into this regenerative space. So
Yeah.
I think that's where you probably come across as more relatable than some of the other people that are strictly regenerative or strictly, they've been in that world for such a long time. But you're bringing both perspectives into the space.
I thought that I would be like the bridge, but I'm not. I mean, vegans look at, Will Harris from White. Oh, well, he's doing better than his dad was doing, and that's great. And I love Will Harris. Like, I think he's extraordinary, but the vegans are not viscerally angry at him, I don't think. But I mean, this morning I woke up to someone had found my phone number and was just like texting, like, slit, 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 killing animals, slitting their throats. People are posting things like, you're just rubbing your fat stomach doing bong hits while your husband slices the throats of animals. I'm like, who even thinks of his gross stuff? Like, thanks for pointing out that my stomach is fat. I just had 4 babies back to back. I'm working on it, but thank you. I got it. I'll work on that. And I don't smoke pot, and I don't know why you're imagining that. Like, people are just so angry with me. And I think it's because whenever someone says something that pushes up against your religion, your orthodoxy, like the what it is, it it's more confronting. And so it's almost like I'm part of the church, and then I'm saying, well, this church is not real or whatever. 13 years
Yeah.
I was at the vegan establishment in Los Angeles.
Mhm.
Uh, I was lifetime not eating meat. That you can't get more dedicated. And then people want to just now say, "Oh, I'm changing just for the money," or they want to say like, "I jumped on the vegan bandwagon." But they know, and then now I'm jumping off. But everybody that knows that's not true. And so, if you logically think about it, how much evidence had to be provided to me to go from veganism is the way forward for our health, for our body, for the planet, and for everybody, for me to go, I think that plant-based food have a lot of value. I mean, I think that animal-based foods have a lot of value in our health and our brain development and all of that. I think that less suffering matters. And I think that regenerative agriculture is causing less suffering. And I don't even try to get into the carbon conversation, because it's not, because you'll get people saying, well, carbon doesn't matter. It does matter. Like, here's the thing. Carbon, it's a silly thing to argue about. We're all made out of carbon. It's the building blocks of life, and it's constantly cycling. So we have an opportunity to cycle it into the ground, so then that ground can hold more water, filter more water, have more microbiology, cause more human health. So I forget it. I actually don't want to be in the debate around carbon, the environment. I want to be in the debate about no chemicals in my food, healthier soil, sequestering more water into our aquifers. Like, those are the only conversations I want to have. I don't want to argue about 0.0 degrees and the because nobody knows. And we can do ice cores, and you have a bunch of scientists over here saying, well, we're in a cooling and warming and blah, 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 blah. And I mean, in my lifetime, I remember there was an ice age, like in the late 70s, we were waiting for the ice age to be coming. So now we're waiting for us to all burn in hell. And what I want to say is that conversation is only to have us feel completely impotent, like we can't do anything. The conversation of regenerative agriculture is literally, we are the keystone species on the planet, and we get to make a difference. We get to take dominion over the earth and do something that makes a difference for cleaning our air, cleaning our water, and really harvesting more water into our aquifers, having our rivers and creeks cleaner, having no runoff, having no dead areas of the ocean. Like, it's simple. Like, that's the conversation. The idea that, well, we are all distracted arguing about carbon and 2 degrees and 1.5 degrees, literally we're being dumped with chemicals, and it's just a distraction for us to other people. Oh, those stupid people don't believe in climate change. Those stupid people believe that we are changing the climate. It's no, okay, well, we're all being poisoned, and the average sperm count of a man in 2040 is going to be 0. And I have 2 boys that are going to be only 25 and 29 at that time. And I'd like them to be able to have sex with their wives and have a baby. So how about we start arguing about something that matters and stop focusing on carbon? So I don't think we should. I think that the regenerative agriculture thing is awesome, but it can't be used to fear people. And that's why it's never going to get a lot of traction, because everything they talk about with the environment is just gaslighting to sell Tesla's, solar panels, and windmills.
Yeah. Or you see the windmills, the field of windmills in West Texas.
No, I haven't seen
Oh,
it,
you
but
haven't
I
seen them?
have seen it in California. And it, here's the truth. Windmills cause warming. If we really were worried about warming, windmills cause warming because it never lets the air settle. And so in farming, we all know that we use windmills that are powered by a motor when it's going to frost to make sure that the air never settles and the ground never cools, and so it doesn't frost. So if really core temperature matters, and like we want the soil to get down to the coldest temperature at nighttime so that the temperature of the earth is stabilized, we wouldn't take hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of acres and put windmills on them.
Well, the interesting one is the one that doesn't get touched for like global warming is tech. All of the servers powered for the cloud, all the power it takes to maintain those to the point where we're making small nuclear plants to power them, because there's just so much on the grid. We tend to not touch on that because that's kind of grandfathered in or whatever.
Well, it's a benefit.
Oh yeah,
we
or
have.
what about the children that are digging up all of the minerals for our cell phones and the batteries and lithium ion batteries? Like we choose the things that we want to focus on and be outraged by,
Yeah.
but we don't really choose it. An algorithm is choosing it. We're being divided by an algorithm. And the thing is like me and you, I don't even know you guys, but we're not going to agree on everything, right? We're not even going to probably agree on 50% of stuff, but I can have love and affinity for you, and you can have love and affinity for me, and we can not have to agree on everything. When I was a child, my parents had dinner with people that were Democrats and Republicans, and there'd be polite conversation about why they think this or that, or, oh, I'm disappointed about this. And even people would talk about their guy and say, like, I don't like that this guy did this, but I think he's better on this. And just normal stuff. Nowadays, if I was in Echo Park in my restaurant and I was like, hey guys, did you see that Trump is going to not tax tips? That's pretty cool, right? And I'm not a Trump fan. I don't like his crass ways, but my point is, if I said that in my Echo Park restaurant, they would look at me like, oh my God, blah, 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 blah. And he's such an asshole. And da, da, da. He is an asshole, but my life was certainly better under him than it is today.
Yep.
I mean, Biden's like literally proposing a tax on, what is it called? Like unrealized capital gains. So people's houses are going to go up in value, and then they're going to owe all this money, and they can't, not selling their house, so they can't pay it. It's the craziest taxation schemes are coming out. But I ultimately think we need to stop looking to a Trump or a Biden to save us, and we need to look to our own communities, create those relationships, create those pathways where we can depend on each other. And that's what I'm giving my life to. And so in LA, I want to create a restaurant where people can come and they can eat and they can feel safe, that there's no chemicals in the food, and et cetera, et cetera. In LA, I want to create a place where people can come and learn about agriculture and have weddings, have bar mitzvahs, have quinceañeras, have whatever, family reunions, and enjoy the hill country and buy some meat, buy some dairy, buy some vegetables, and see about that. Like, I really want to step away from looking to daddy government for anything.
Yep. That was beautiful. And I think we would agree on a lot more than we would disagree on. But
My point is we're not ever going to agree with everybody always, you know,
Yeah.
that's this.
Yeah. No, I agree.
But we've come to a world where it's,
well,
we don't agree, so we are canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Molly, we appreciate your time. I got one last question, and it's for I guess the average consumer, the average person that's busy in their day-to-day lives. What, if they're listening to this and they hear your inspirational story, what can they do to get involved in the movement, the community? What actions can people take to make a difference?
Well, I think that everybody can buy their meat from a farm. Nowadays, there's so many different options. There's a guy, AJ Richards. Have you guys had him on your podcast?
I don't
You
think,
should.
no.
He has a website that he's launching called From the Farm, and he's trying to put together consumers and farmers. But buy direct from a farm of some kind. Buy a box of meat directly from the farm. That is like one thing you can do right now. 80% of our meat is processed by 4 companies, and I think that we need to pull that in the other direction. It's a dangerous place for us to be. And so whether you go buy a quarter cow here in Texas, it's pretty easy to buy a half cow or quarter cow or whole cow from your neighbor and send it to a custom cut place and get it done. You could get a whole cow. But if you're in a city somewhere or you don't have space to have a whole cow, there's lots of farms that you can order direct from the farm, and it comes in a box, and you're getting that meat that was direct from that farm. So the farmer is getting the majority of the money. Right now, the system is such that farmers keep the cows until they're, a year old, and then they bring them to auction, and then they get fattened up in a consolidated feedlot system, and then the middleman is making the majority of the money. And let's shift that the farmers are getting it, and support farmers that are supporting soil. That's my main thing. And ask questions about the soil. Ask when you're at the farmers market, ask people like, have you heard about regenerative agriculture? What are you doing to create healthy soil? How are you building more biomass? How are you building, our soil is so important. It's the foundation of all life on the planet. 25% of life on the planet actually lives in our topsoil. And in one handful of healthy topsoil, there's more living organisms than all the people that have ever lived on the earth. So it's like there's so much life in the soil, and it's profoundly connected to our health. 70% of it is 70% of the microbiology found in healthy topsoil is also found in a healthy gut of a human being.
Well, Molly, we love you and appreciate your time, and we're definitely going to book some time to come out and check you out in Bend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Molly. Have a good one.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.